Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the World Championship Series Challenger for Europe. And it will be day 3. It will be the conclusion of the entirety of Challenger, as we have 4 series and 4 players to figure out who's going to be moving into Premier here by the end of the day. Rotterdam, you cast a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry I wasn't able to be here, man, but I think you had a lot of fun yesterday.
We did our best to hold down the fort and make you proud, James.
Yeah. I heard partially.
No, well, a little bit of quality banter on the side, but no, all eyes on the games, and it was a really good show. I think there were 1 or 2 series that were a little bit one-sided. I think the first one and the last one, not too surprisingly if you take a look at who was playing who, but especially in the middle of the show we had a couple of really good games, and I think you and me had a lot of fun. I think the viewers had fun, and I enjoyed the games, and I'm getting more and more hyped for Premier League Season 3, man. We're getting closer and closer.
Yeah, we are, as we have. Let's take a look at what's gone on in the past couple of days as well as what's going to be happening today. As you can see here in day 2, that's what we really need to recap, and to many people's surprise, Bunny is gone, and that is a big deal considering he was the one really leading the charge on non-Koreans when it came to getting to BlizzCon.
You know, James, you know all about this. Sometimes you go into a series and obviously you try to spin it one way or the other that it could potentially be exciting, and then you kind of know what to say about how to sell the story, but you don't really expect yourself to ever go there. And suddenly I'm commentating like Starbuck is up 2-1 in this series. If Bunny loses one of the 2 next games, Bunny's done, and that's it's just such a huge surprise. Like I really think it's a sensational result for Starbuck. And yeah, I know, like everyone you talked to yesterday, I met Targa and Zocca, and they're like, how on earth did Starbuck beat Bunny? You know, what happened? And you recap the games, they're like, okay, no, really big upset. One of the biggest upsets, I think, of the entire year of WCS, because Bunny really has been so solid, so consistent.
And this is what happens in Challenger. Almost every single season we see somebody, unfortunately, being on the bitter end of those upsets. Now let's move on to day number 3 here and look at the matchups a little bit closer, as we only have 4 matchups today, with 2 actual mirror matchups, which guarantees us at least a Protoss and a Zerg, but of course we have a few other players here to look for. Any particular highlights you're looking at here, Rotterdam?
I think Hearthstone versus Nurcho is the one that truly stands out for me. Maybe a little bit of Dutch bias once more, but Nurcho is such an old school powerhouse. You know, he was once upon a time one of the absolute best Zergs in Europe. He was around when Stefano was still dominating, but Nurcho was that other Zerg in Europe that if Stefano wasn't there, Nurcho would have been the superstar because he was so good. We all remember that home story cup. And since then, we all know Nurcho's still studying. He's not going all out. He's always very involved with the community, though, because any single post on Team Liquid, Nurcho is there, you know, and he keeps his eyes on everything. So I think that's a match that truly stands out, especially because Hearthstone was kind of a hot Protoss, and he still is, in my opinion. He's still one of the better Protosses in Europe. But he went on a little bit of a cold streak, you know. WCS Canada went 0-4. That was pretty surprising, but people were like, yeah, you know, it happens. A weekend later, he goes to Home Story Cup, again 0-4. And I love Hearthstone, but if you really want to solidify yourself as one of the best Protosses in Europe, you cannot go 0-8. And he's such a cool guy. He said, yeah, I'm going to take a couple days off, just, you know, freshen up my mind, just take it easy. And after that, I'm going to come back in full force again and get ready for Season 3. So that is one matchup that I'm really excited for.
So am I. Hopefully it comes in all guns blazing and proves people wrong out there, any doubters. But now let's take a look at our first game of the day here for our Final 4 series. It's going to be Elazer, the Wonder Kid from Challenger in Season 2, who was able to defeat Showtime, going up against Welmu, who has been absolute mainstay in Europe when it comes to Premier League, but last season was the position that he never thought he was going to be in. He always believed that he was going to be in Premier time and time again. Last season he fell off, and this is really the point where he has to prove himself and has to get back in Premier shortly.
I know it sounds crazy, but to me it wasn't a massive surprise that Red was able to defeat Welmu in the previous season, because I kind of felt that Welmu, as good as he was in 2013 and 2014, I kind of felt like he took it a little easy. He took a break that was almost like a Jadong break. It wasn't like a week break, you know, like, oh, I'm going to take a week off of the game, go on a holiday. No, Welmu was pretty much inactive for months, then somehow played a couple games, did immediately won Season 1 Premier League, and then sometimes you get that false sense of security about your own play, like, I still got it, you know, I don't really have to work that hard. And I just kind of felt that Red was a much better player on that moment, and he was a lot more active, and I kind of predicted everywhere that Red was going to beat Welmu, but now totally agree with you that this is really a moment where, okay, Welmu, Season 2, you know, you got a reality check. You do need to practice, no matter how consistent you've been in the past. You need to give it your best, and now we're going to see if he is going to bring his best, or if we're going to see the Polish Wonder Kid reign supreme.
Yeah, he's got another big powerhouse Protoss to topple here in Challenger. And he's been able to do it once before with Showtime after getting that 3rd and 4th place in Season 1. And now he goes up against one of the absolute mainstays of Premier here in Welmu, who really needs that redemption, really needs to get back up there.
You know what I always love about Welmu's play? If you look at it, I never feel like you're looking at a flawless Protoss, because you can actually point out the mistakes, whether you're, you know, Diamond, Master League, or GM. You can always see a couple things that he could potentially be doing better, but then he's still so effective. His timings always hit so hard, they make almost no sense, but he executes it so well, so I'm really curious to see what we're going to see today.
All right, let's get into it. First game of this best of 5 to start things off for day 3 of Challenger here in Europe. As we have spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner. These guys are fast. We have our red Zerg representing Team Supremacy, Extreme Supremacy even I should say. It is Elazer. And then up to the top right-hand corner, we have our blue Protoss, recently teamless now. It is indeed Welmu, who, in my mind, again, just to reiterate this, has to have a good performance. Yeah. He cannot go without advancing onto Premier, because if you don't hit Premier 2 seasons in a row after being one of the most consistent European players in the entire scene, it's disastrous.
Absolutely, James. Like, when you think about top Protosses for 2013, 2014, everyone always said, okay, Welmu's one of the best Protoss players in Europe. If you ask people right now, first name that comes to mind, Lilbao. After that, they often say the Petit Rogo, Harstem, you know, there are a few other. Naniwa, of course, still. Showtime is doing very well. Gongfu Banda is pretty consistent. And people are starting to slowly but steady forget a little bit about Welmu. So, you know, this is his moment. He's going to show, like, guys, don't even think for a second that I truly dropped off. You're like, yeah, Season 2, maybe I underestimated, you know, the importance of WCS for a little bit. Maybe I underestimated how much I have to practice. But if I do practice, then I'm still one of the best. And that's what he's going to try to show over here. Interestingly enough, James, he went for 9 pylon on the low ground and immediately scouted afterwards. Now, the 9 pylon is not very surprising. Any other pylon would be crazy. But that he scouted immediately at 9 supply and then also dropped the forge, that's kind of an interesting opener. And Elazer got a little bit scared. He's like, whoa, that's a scare. That's a very fast probe in my base. I'm not going to go hedge first over here.
Uh-oh.
What? No.
No, he's going
to channel his inner heart.
Uh-oh. Well, I was about to say, okay, well, the probe's coming down for the Nexus. But the thing is that Welmu, compared to a lot of Protoss, would you say he puts his own style and flair into the game?
Exactly. He's not really a guy. He did told me that he pretty much watches only Korean StarCraft, and then he kind of just watches for the sake of learning build orders and whatnot. But I always feel that he gives his own twist to something he sees. You know, you might see Rain, Zess, SOS, or Classic do a certain build, and then Welmu will take a couple pointers out of it, at least do the opening stages like that. And from a certain point, I just kind of feel like it's freestyling, and he relies a lot on game understanding. And I think if there is one thing that Welmu excels at, it's at taking battles that he will win. He's very smart when it comes to, is my army better now? And if it is, he's always going to fight. And if it's not, he will try to avoid a fight at all costs. I think that's a very useful skill to have.
And these Zerglings actually managed to get in past the cannon. That's a little bit unfortunate there for Welmu. The timings weren't exactly there for him to really stop that. I think he may have had minerals to make a pylon with that.
I actually think on those moments you should just drop that pylon. I would rather drop that pylon and cancel it for 25 minerals than have 3 Zerglings in my base. Because look at these 4, 5, 6 probes right now that are not actually fighting. One more probe goes down as well. This is a very useful little opening for Elazer. Kill 2 probes, and let's not forget that Welmu scouted at 9 supply and also got the forge before the Nexus.
Saved all of the Zerglings for a moment there, up to a point where one actually died off, but it's disrupting a lot of mining time. He did lose a little bit while that was going on. Thankfully, he's transitioning over. But for Welmu to go for something like kind of Cannon Rush here, I think if you really cast your mind back to the Season 2 Challenger, that's exactly how Elazer eventually won that series, by defending cannon rushes.
Spot on, James. If there is one thing that I take away from that series is don't cannon rush Elazer, because he handles it the exact way that a Zerg should handle it. He never really panicked. He never overcommitted. He's just like, go ahead, spend a couple hundred minerals on trying to deny my natural. I'm just going to expend somewhere else. And he played flawless that series. If I think back of the series, Season 2 Challenger, Elazer vs Showtime, one of the big upsets of Season 2, obviously Elazer played very well, but I mostly felt that Elazer just didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes, and it was Showtime underperforming a little bit and just playing inferior strategies, maybe underestimating him a little bit as well. So if I learn one thing from that, it's like, okay, that is not the right way to play against Elazer, because he's not a Zerg that panics over a bunch of cannons.
Definitely not. They're going to spread himself out. Try to spread out some creep at the front here.
Oh, that's nice.
Good move by Welmu to bring the Stalker forwards and deny that creep tumor from the very beginning.
Yep, especially because Elazer dropped his hatchery over here. Often they'll drop it at 6 o'clock when you have these spawning positions, but he said, nope, I'm going to drop it closer towards you, little Protoss. And that kind of gives me the idea that maybe he wants to go for a big Roach Hydra-ish shove. It's very hard though, because you know, if you scout it in time as if your name is Welmu, you just make a bunch of sentries, you go up to Colossus immediately. And I don't even think you really have to play this Blink Stalker style that's so popular, because I think that would be slightly more difficult to defend a very aggressive Zerg with these spawning locations. But if you just rely on Robo units and then eventually get a Twilight Console, and unless they go up to Vipers super quick, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your analysis, actually, because look how quickly he's really pushing the creep with the 3 queens in this active, aggressive position. And we did see him using those really powerful mid-game timings, even against Showtime in the past. Also, you know, in a lot of other cups that we've seen Elazer play in, he has been going for those kind of styles as well. So you've got to be careful in Welmu's shoes, because the aggression could be hitting you pretty soon. Yeah,
there is a chance that Welmu is going to be the aggressor as well, though, because his robotics facility was pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
And here is, as Litud would say, the gateway explosion, where, you know, we see at least 3 gateways go down and potentially a few more. I really love a couple things that Todd says. Instead of 11 gate, Todd always says gateway 11, and then I see everyone in Twitch chat losing it. Frenchie, it's 11 gate! And Todd is like, no, it's gateway 11.
He's a stubborn fellow, let's put it that way.
Well, we love him for who he is.
Yeah. Whoa, these queens are being very, very active forwards here. And they're actually going to start putting on some pressure against these buildings, because realistically, they have pretty good range at the front.
Like, this would be good if Welmu was playing a greedy style going up to 3 bases, but what Elazer is practically doing right now, he's trying to bust a 2-base Protoss, that actually wants to attack him. If he can get the Forge, that would be pretty awesome. No +1 for you, Welmu. But I have a hard time imagining that he's going to win the game over here.
No, I don't think so, but he's done quite a bit of damage. I mean, the Forge going down, as you said, denying the +1, and he also sees the Immortals now completely, so he knows what he's going to be playing up against here if Welmu actually busts out of this location.
If I was Elazer, I would just, like, evacuate immediately. This is not going to work, man. You're just throwing away a lot of units. This is a dream scenario for Welmu, because Welmu is probably like, okay, this attack is going to hit kind of late, but hopefully I can still make it work because it's going to be really strong. Then suddenly you see that your opponent made a ridiculous amount of units, and he's attacking into you. So you know his economy is weak, and he just threw away a bunch of units. So if you're Welmu right now, you're laughing it straight to the bank. You're like, well, this was the absolute best thing that could ever happen to me. Other than the fact that I lost my Forge, that's a little bit infuriating, but there is not really an extremely high Zergling. Well, 42 Zerglings. Okay, so it would be indeed very... Having no +1 could be very frustrating against 42 links, but in the end of the day, +1 or no +1, if the force fields are good and there is little surface area to attack this Protoss army, that was really funny. I think for a split second, Welmu wanted to give him the idea he wanted to go up to 3 bases, and then creep got dropped. Do we have an observer yet? Okay, this is kind of silly. If I was Welmu, I would always get the observer before the Warp Prism, because now Hydralisk are on the way.
Yeah.
And I feel he's wasting a little bit too much time here. Of course, it's scary to move out when you know that Zerg has so many units out on the map, but this is taking a long time, and that Hydra count is going to be... I mean, it has to be very high, because 5 Immortals, even when Immortals are not phenomenal against Hydras, 5 Immortals, James, gotta respect them.
Pretty much. It's a very, very scary army.
Oh, the
try
flank.
and set up a flank, though. He's got the step defense.
I think it's gonna be great.
And this could work out really, really well from him. There's quite a bit of energy still left on the sentries, but he's not wrapping it around the backside. He's just focusing on the front.
Oh my God.
The Zerglings, but that's a great surround here for Elazer.
I think it's gonna work over here for Elazer. Actually, he could snipe the Warp Prism, That would be so massive.
Oh, very, very close.
He wants, you really want to kill the Prism as quick as possible, because he's on creep, so you know there is no pylon nearby, but maybe it doesn't even matter. Oh, imagine if he would have killed the Prism, it would have been GG already.
It would have been great. But the thing is already he got 4 of the Immortals out of the 5.
What a great engagement there for Elazer. Welmu perhaps being a little overconfident and did not even check to see if there were units. And this all comes back, by the way, to the great creep spread that Elazer had all along.
It's kind of, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Once you walk onto that, so much preparation time here for the Zerg.
All right, he's going to reposition a couple of these spine crawlers. I think the army of Elazer should be good enough over here, but one more time, just kill the prism and this is over, and it's absolutely over.
Yeah, the Queens could have some range on that if it does encroach just a little further forward. So here's the Observer now to try and clean up some of the creep, but I mean, that is not the biggest of his problems. The Warp Prism took a little bit of damage there, but he's just going to have to back off for now. Wait until it comes into the concave, because at the moment, Protoss doesn't have many options.
No, I mean, well, I guess in this point, Elazer just looks at it, he's like, well, that army's not going to kill me, so...
Yeah.
Welmu is going to drop the robotics bay at home, and that's kind of a desperation robotics bay. That's kind of the robo bay that you drop if you know your 2-base is not going to work, and, well, I need to do something, so let's just try to do it again later on with another Colossus. It's very unlikely Welmu can go up to 3 bases from here. Man, Elazer even renewed creep tumors while that army was attacking him. Very well done.
And we're going to see a little bit of harassment down towards the bottom left, and this is basically to buy him time. He has to buy time, otherwise he knows that the front could be crushed. It has drawn the entire army back, but even the reinforcements alone were able to shut down that. So Elazer is flying at the moment in this game.
Yep, I'm trying to figure out what I would do if I was Welmu, and I really think the best thing you can do is just chrono boost out 1 or 2 Colossus and just try it all over again. Try to gather up some energy on a couple of these sentries that have still been alive. Because if there are no Vipers, even when you're down 40, 50 supply as a Protoss, if you have Immortals and Colossus and Force Fields, you can win a fight, even when you're down heavily in army supply, you know. If it's 80 versus 120 army supply, if the Force Fields are good enough, you are going to win that, especially because Colossus are phenomenal against pretty much every single unit that Elazer currently has, because Elazer has no more roaches.
And the Warp Prism to the left-hand side is going to try and, once again, pretty much buy time with this harassment. Also limit a little bit of the economy and slow Elazer down, but once he's maxes out, I mean, that's a very scary army he's going to have available.
Yep. Oh, no cancel. A little bit sloppy there. And that was very unnecessary. I'm not sure why he just didn't cancel it, because there wasn't really anything else going on the map. Elazer is going to try to counter this third base attempt from Welmu. Welmu still only has 45 probes, but he could potentially transfer probes from the main base. Let's take a look at this third base from Welmu real quick, James.
Yeah, Zogman's just trying to dance on in there, but not going to get too much done, unfortunately.
Well, at the same time, though, that big army is moving towards the natural, so he did pull him out of position a little bit, so it's going to be harder to drop sentries. That was actually a very cool move by Elazer, man. He used those links to get out of position, but he still has to be so careful, James. Oh, God, there are 2 Colossus over here. These Hydras are in for a very, very rough fight. Yeah. If I was Elazer, I would send a couple of those Hydras into the mineral line, so at least you get something out of this attack, because he's not going to win this fight.
Oh, not at all. Technically, Thermal Lance isn't done, so the Hydras actually have pretty much the same range here as the Colossi, but there was no focus for them, and also the Force Field just splitting off some of that army down towards the bottom really hurts that. Welmu is fighting his way back into this game.
A little bit of, I think the people in chat are already saying hashtag the game of trolls over here, because a couple of these attacks, like, it looked cool, but with 2 Colossus, it's just very hard to do it. I do like this little run by again right now towards the third base. He's going to try to pick off a probe or 2, and all these small things, as long as Elazer is buying time for himself, it's very useful, because that previous fight was disastrous. If you can get the same fight again, maybe with a Viper, so kill the Prism this time, I think it's very smart, because it's unlikely that Welmu really wants to go super deep into creep when he lost his Warp Prism, so he's going to try to rebuild his Prism, but this may be enough time for Elazer to get 1 or 2 Vipers out. 2 abducts. Absolutely changed the outcome of this battle.
Doesn't have Mothership Core here, so he can't recall out if it gets in a bit of a predicament. Thankfully for him, though, there was enough power behind those 3 Colossi as well as the Gateway Forces to push Elazer back again, but Elazer is still looking for a good concave. Good Force Fields on the left-hand side to make sure that ground army isn't going to get towards the Colossi.
Yeah, but Elazer is doing a really good job in buying time, and he didn't really lose all that much. Roaches are pretty damn cheap. He's on 4 bases. Welmu is barely on 3. Like, I don't really think 13 probes and not having your gases is called a saturation or a full mining base. And now those Vipers are out. So soon to be 1. I was like, where's that spine attacking from? I didn't see it anymore because it was buried below the force field. But look at these Vipers. They're gathering energy right now. And it's very, very hard to protect your Colossus if you don't have High Templars.
Yeah. And I think he does realize the severity of the situation. He's going to pull one of the Colossi forwards. That's going to fall very quickly. Second one goes down as well. The ground force is really waning here for Welmu, and even that Immortal will end up dying off at the front. Yep. If the last Colossus falls, then that is it.
This Roach army is just too good right now, man. There were not too many Immortals, so these Roaches, they can actually take a little bit of a beating. That final Colossus is going to fall as well, and just like that, Elazer will win game number 1 on Cactus Valley. What a funny, entertaining game over here, James.
Yeah, that was not exactly what I expected, I'll be honest. I really, really like the choice of Elazer, though, to push the creep so aggressively up that path and then put on some pressure. Yeah, it wasn't game-ending, but it got +1, which was actually a really big deal.
And especially if we take a look at that fight that happened afterwards, where we kind of thought like this could go well for Welmu. The Zerglings obviously got a dream engagement, and Welmu can fault himself for that a little bit by not taking care that there is a ramp on his left side that he didn't check up on. But there were so many links that just got the wraparound on the army immediately. And then if you have a couple zealots in the mix, like +1 does make a world of difference. But I do think if that similar fight happens, even with +1, I still think that Welmu's going to have a very rough time, because that was just a perfect fight for Zerglings and Hydras against an army that had almost no zealots. If he does have 7 or 8 zealots on the side, then this flank doesn't matter. Zealots are like, haha, and they just brush him all off, you know, and they kill him immediately. But now it worked out for Elazer.
Yeah, you're totally right about it. He just, the force fields weren't there in the end. The force fields were not there to zone him out. And that means Elazer here goes up 1-0 in this best of 5 against yet another powerhouse Protoss in the European scene. At the moment, if Welmu is not able to pull this one back, then I don't know what's happening, man. After being so consistent, it's looking tough at the moment. Elazer's playing good. Yep.
Also, the opening, we can go back all the way to the opening just to get a little bit in detail. But opening up with a 9 scout, and he was potentially hoping for a cannon rush. But then Elazer is like, well, sometimes it's funny because it's like rather unfortunate if you scout your opponent immediately on a 4-player map. And that may sound very stupid. People are like, well, why is that? Like, why would you be unhappy by finding him first? If you go for a 9 scout, it's kind of like, well, I don't expect him to find him at the first try. And then if your opponent doesn't see a probe, he might still go hatch first, which will then allow you to cannon rush him. But if you find him immediately, your opponent's like, well, you know, probe in my base. I guess I'll just go pull first because, you know, let's not laugh in the face of danger. So maybe that was a little bit unfortunate for Welmu. But what's then even worse is that he saw the pull first, and those links still got into his main base, picked up that first probe that was on hold position, then got into the main base, a little bit of mining time loss, second probe. These are all small things that do really add up.
Yeah, they do. They do. Our next map is going to be Iron Fortress here in this best of 5, as the countdown has begun. If Elazer is able to take a 2-0 lead in this series, then looking fantastic for him. He got to Premier last season and
made a good impression in Premier as well.
Yeah, he did make a good impression. And the thing is that after making that kind of impression, obviously you're always wanting to pursue more and more, right? And for Elazer, someone like one of these young bloods here in WCS, it's fantastic to get to Premier alone, really, to actually kind of pursue and move on in your career. But anyway, let's get into game number 2 now here for the World Championship Series Challenger. This is the final day of Challenger as we round out our 32 players going to be playing off against one another. And Elazer is 1 game up, and he's up to the top right as our red Zerg. And then down to the bottom left, we have our blue Protoss. It is Welmu.
You're talking about this potential 2-0 for Elazer, and the first thing I want to say is like, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, it could just be a 1-1 as well. But we're looking at Iron Fortress over here, and that's definitely one of the better maps for Zerg in the current map pool. A couple of these other maps, they're still not really figured out. You know, Bridgehead, is it good for Zerg? Well, yeah, technically, but I've also seen Protoss do pretty well on it. Moonlight Madness, a lot of Zergs are... You know, if Protoss was first complaining about it, it's like, oh, double destructible rocks into my potential third base, that's a disaster. And then suddenly Zerg is like, no, do you know how narrow this map is? This map is a disaster for us, you know, what are you guys whining about? But Iron Fortress, let's be honest, it's a good map for Zerg. It's very difficult for Protoss to go up to 3 bases. And with these spawning locations, a 2-base attack, cross-map Iron Fortress, that's not something that I am particularly a big fan of. And I really don't think Welmu is going to do that either, so... it's going to be tricky for him. It will be a difficult map to play out. It's just so wide open. And I mean, there's a Zerg symbol in the middle of the map that says something, right?
Yeah, that's true. Let's just quickly take a look at that. This is Zerg territory right here, my friend.
It's been designed by a Zerg player. He said, like, guys, I'm not even going to hide my bias. You want more transparency in esports? Well, I'm a map maker and I play Zerg. And Protoss, good luck going up to 3 bases.
So is there the potential that Welmu on a map like this can do something like a Baguette style, Little Bow style? Very, very heavy stalker play, trying to control the mid-game, etc.
I do think that's a pretty good map for it, especially because stalkers are rather like chunky units as well. They need a little bit of open area to truly make sure they all shoot at the same time, or you know, at least the majority of your army is shooting. It's going to be hard to drop the perfect force fields, of course. That's the downside to it again, but I can see Welmu execute something like that. I don't think a build, as he tried to go for on Cactus Valley, is going to do very well over here on Iron Fortress. So he's going to have to switch it up. It could also be an Oracle into Blinkstalker play. Welmu has always kind of been a fan of an Oracle, so we'll see.
And usually pylon at the back of the mineral line is very indicative of either the Twilight Council or the Stargate. It'd be funny if you put a robo all the way back here.
Yeah, that would be so unlikely. I'd be super surprised. If that happens, James, it's not your fault or mine.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Let's just get it out there.
I'm glad you've got my back.
Absolutely.
And well, at least he does find him up to the top right-hand corner here, sees the bases, and I think did skirt past the third location briefly, so his understanding that it's not something crazy like a 3-hatch opener after seeing what he's seen.
Yep. Speed is on the way, which means the Elazer is going to get access to circling speed around the 6-minute mark, which is rather standard. That just basically tells Welmu, all right, you know, let's not chrono boost out 1 or 2 stalkers and start running into the middle of the map hoping for an overlord kill or something like that. If you know your opponent is going to have speed at 550, you know it's going to be hard to surprise him. The plus side of this opening for Elazer is that he should have absolute map control and he should be able to check every single corner of this map and find that hidden probe that is potentially looking to drop a pylon for maybe later on 3-4 gateway aggression, maybe even DTs or something like that. The downside, of course, is to it that you have one drone that morphs into the extractor and then 3 drones that are mining gas for a while, which could have potentially all been mining minerals. So it's a little less economic, but it is very safe. And I always kind of like this. I feel as a Zerg, if you feel confident in the matchup, just open up with speed. You know, like, yeah, you take a minor economic hit, but on a map like this, where there are so many potential locations for a pylon or for a probe to hide, going for relatively quick circling speed, I think is an awesome decision.
Yeah, especially since, you know, he's seen where that probe is heading back via having the watchtower vision, and he's scouting out that entire area with his Zergling up towards this third base. He knows it's probably been revealed now, and he will just be covering all of his bases to make sure that there is none of those pylons like you mentioned.
So far it's just double sentry at home for Welmu, 2 more gateways going down. He could potentially try to go up to 3 bases before even going for a Twilight or something like that, but it's got to be risky, man, especially because he does know that Elazer has Zergling speed. So Elazer could potentially make a big swell of links, and if you try to go up as Protoss to 3 bases before you reveal any of your real tech and it gets cancelled, well, red alert.
Red alert, red alert. You got to be careful. And with the Forge going down at the back here, this is looking like kind of what we were suggesting before with the, you know, just going up to upgrades, playing this out a little bit longer, maybe focusing on the Twilight Council very soon to then have Blink coming in. But and with all the sentries, looking to maybe go toward the 3rd expansion?
Exactly, but he has to be very careful about it. He hallucinated an Oracle. I kind of like this, because if you're Elazer and you see this Oracle flying across the map, you're like, oh, it's probably real. There are 3 Spore Crawlers going down. I really hate it when people do this in PvP, because it's like, I wonder if he's going to cancel a couple of his Spores, or if he's going to let them finish up. A Spore in every base, it's not bad, because, you know, he hasn't... Okay, he's going to cancel the one in the main. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So he cancels 1 out of 3. He hasn't seen anything yet, so it could have still been Dark Templars or something like that. But at first he probably just thought like, oh god, that Oracle is real. Because he hasn't seen what's in the back of the main base of Welmu. And if you've seen Oracle solely, you're like, you know, if it's a Phoenix, nobody's ever going to just drop 3 spores. But Oracles, they do force out a reaction like that.
Exactly. Well, it looks like all of our suspicions have been confirmed here. Welmu, 3rd base, Twilight Council. He's just getting set up nice and pretty for the later stages of this game with a lot of stalkers. And
what? I really hate the position of that robotics facility, James.
Oh yeah, that's keen. That's very keen. That's how I'm going to describe it.
It's such an important building. If you end up losing it, and there's no War Prism, there is no potential immort if you really need it, no observers anymore. Playing with fire. I really don't like it.
Yeah. Well, let's see how it's going to play out. He needs to make sure he has full coverage of these ramps. Maybe kill the cooling tower off to the back as well, making sure there's not going to be any lings looping around.
Well, Elazer is going to test the waters over here a little bit. He will see that there is a sentry that's completing the wall off for now. I kind of like this already. Just running around with a couple links, seeing that probes are being transferred. He got 2 probes, not bad. Got 1 more.
Yeah, he's doing okay, because it was the double-pronged little bit of aggression there that drew almost the entire army down towards the main, or the natural choke, I should say. And all the while, he has been producing quite a few Hydralisks here.
It could be hard to attack with Hydras up the ramps because there are so many sentries and so many force fields. So I think the best thing, if you are a Elazer and you're very serious about this aggression, which he seems to be, is on 63 workers. So this is definitely quite a commitment. You kind of want to position yourself in between the natural and the third base because that is the power of Iron Fortress in general for Zergs. That is a very wide open area and it's very hard for Protoss to get the force fields they're hoping of. Maybe even swing around with links and whatnot. We'll see how this one goes. Of course, you do need to make sure that your army is actually strong enough to fight. Just a few Hydras could potentially not be enough, as we're looking currently at how many gateways? 6 gateways already. So if he wipes in 6 Stalkers now, I actually think he can easily fight this.
Zerglings positioning themselves up towards the top as well. He's looking to get the wraparound here on this army. So the Zerglings are going to try and buy some time for the Hydras to get into a better position. We'll seal them off down towards the south, divide and conquer.
Good job.
And they're all completely caught. That's a great little move.
Yep, very, very good force field so far by Welmu. This is what I said. I think it's very hard to run up that ramp, so I think it's better to position yourself in between and maybe force Protoss to move down. But just going up over here, well, almost nothing has gone down for Welmu. Maybe the Mothership Core, but nope, not even the Mothership Core has gone down. I think Welmu lost almost nothing. Let's take a look at units lost resource tab. 3,400 against 1,400. What a phenomenal fight for Welmu.
Very, very well done. Very well orchestrated. And you're right. I mean, Welmu at the moment, look at the supply. It's 130 against 97 right now. That was quite the commitment there for Elazer, who's, because of it, his 4th base is slightly later. And, well, the Hive is on the way, actually, a bit more rapidly than I was going to expect from this, but overall, you know, Welmu's doing really well.
So Welmu was so pleased with that defense that he's going to try to make something happen. There are a couple Zerglings running on the left side. There is only 1 cannon in this 3rd base, so just like 20 or so Zerglings could already be very, very frustrating to deal with. Photon Overcharge is expired. All of these links will work on a pylon. You can't really go in there because there are 3 cannons. I do kind of like it. It's very safe, but it's a difficult map, so sometimes getting 3 cannons just as part of your wall-off is not a bad idea at all.
Probes on the way. +2 weapons is coming in for Welmu, but a little bit slower than I was expecting with this kind of style. And he'll lose a sentry. Oh, not too bad for some lings. Not too bad at all. And just keep this army dancing around in the middle of the map for now, up until the point where Welmu really wants to start launching those assaults.
Yeah, I mean, Elazer needs to buy a little bit of time because that first Hydra attack went disastrous and he knows it. And like I mentioned, it was a pretty serious commitment. He was doing all of that of 63 drones. That is not fantastic.
Yeah, and with the 4th base now on the way here, means that he's going to be in a really, really good spot at the moment. Up until the point where the initial push does come, but thankfully these lings are in a good spot to eventually go for a counter if he moves out again.
Or at least, you know, buy a little bit of time. There are 3 Vipers on the way right now. Now, Vipers are not as crucial as they were on Cactus Valley, when that Protoss army truly relied on those Colossus dealing the majority of the damage. But these Vipers can still be extremely useful. Once again, Stalkers are kind of chunky units. You know, it's kind of difficult to get in a position where all of your Stalkers will fight at the same time. You need a super wide open area for that. So sometimes they clunk up a little bit, and then a couple of Blinding Clouds can really mess with the AI of this Protoss army, especially if you drop a Blinding Cloud on top of all those sentries and those Immortals. Protoss units start becoming very, very derpy. I'm very interested in the outcome of this fight. I think most Zergs will say, like, well, Welmu's always going to win this, but with good Blinding Clouds and on creep, maybe Elazer can make this happen. He has a lot of units in production, though, that are not here yet.
Oh, and those Stalkers are just blinked back to get in a better position, and while that Blinding Cloud went down, so he couldn't continue on with that fight. No way, especially against the potential concave that was going to be set up there by Elazer. Once again, they've all already blinked, so the Blinding Clouds are going to go down in the middle of this. He separates the Stalkers to the left and to the right to try and evade them as much as possible. The Hydralisks actually have a really good concave here, an amazing concave.
I feel this is like the best possible fight ever for Elazer. Those Blinding Clouds were phenomenal. He's pulling drones for now. He has 2-1 upgrades against 2-0.
The force fields.
Look at these. Which force fields, James?
They did nothing. The force fields did nothing. The goggles, they do nothing. That was terrible, unfortunately, for Welmu.
And it was phenomenal for Elazer. A perfect Blinding Cloud, forcing Welmu to take a fight he really doesn't want to take, but maybe got a little bit overconfident, thought my early game was so good, I can probably still win this, right? Well, if you fight against Hydras in a line of fire like that, how rarely have you seen so many Hydras shoot at the same time at the Protoss army?
Like that? No, very rarely. Very rarely. Normally you see the force field pushing the Hydralisks back a little bit and just kind of slowly picking away at the army, but that all went downhill there for Welmu, and now he is really on the back foot. And you know what we had at the beginning. If he goes down 2-0 in this series, it is looking bleak.
Yeah, now it's going to be very difficult because now he's going to drop a Templar Archives, but he's still on 3 bases. Tries to go up to 4 bases, but it's probably going to get sniped immediately, James, over there on the right side, as there are a bunch of roaches and hydras over here, and they're like, cool, free Nexus.
Yum, yum. Not a problem for us, as, well, he doesn't want to be sending that small army down there just yet. He's going to get a good concave. There's not that many force fields here. Protoss has to be very, very careful. He still has a lot of Blink Stalkers, but in the end, he's going to have to blink them back one after another because he needs really strong micro.
Yeah, this is a little tricky though for Elazer because now he's fighting on the other side of the map. It's going to take a long time before reinforcements arrive. The blink on the north side is very ambitious, but there are so many units fighting those cannons, so maybe it's going to work out. But these blinding clouds are so frustrating, man. Most of these stalkers just never shoot. There is a lot of harass going down in the main base of Elazer, but at the same time, I'm almost losing so many workers, way more than he's killing.
Yeah, this is really desperation times here for Welmu. Elazer has taken a big army supply advantage at the moment, and these Hydralisks trading off in not exactly the most efficient way, but as you said, you know, they've killed off this entire mineral line. 23 workers went down. It's 71 workers against 45, so this is looking fantastic here for arguably the challenger.
Yep, absolutely. Well, yeah, last season he was Premier League, but normally he would be indeed the challenger.
Yeah.
But Elazer in a phenomenal position. He's going to just lose these units, but at the same time he's dealing more and more economic damage. He's taking a massive army supply advantage. He's taking a huge economic advantage as well, and I think he's just closing out game number 2 over here.
Looking fantastic for Elazer, really good. The speed at which Elazer has actually come on as a player is looking phenomenal at the moment. And Welmu, you know, right now, as I said, it is looking bleak. He is up against it. He's 100 supply down, and he really now has to turn this around because frustration cannot set in here for Welmu as he's being crushed in the second game. GG, Elazer is able to hold on with a brilliant engagement up towards the top there.
Yeah, and that's a game that definitely, if you're Welmu right now, you're kicking yourself for a little bit. It's just like, oh man, like why did I attack into that? Everything went so good in the start. Like his build was very safe. He got a bunch of cannons, went 3 gate, went up to 3 bases, and then Elazer kind of made the attack that was a little bit scary, but not super scary. And the way that he executed his attack was just the way that Welmu wanted to defend. It's like, yeah, please run up this ramp. You know, I'll drop a bunch of force fields. And Welmu did that very well, by the way. I don't think he could have done it any better. He lost 1,800 resources less than Elazer in a game where Elazer didn't even have a massive economy. Because sometimes, you know, one player loses 1,800 minerals, but he's been down 4 bases against 2 for the longest time. So it's like, well, who cares about units lost resource tab? On this moment, it was kind of even. So Welmu taking such a cost-effective fight, that was great for him. Then I kind of think he maybe wasted a little too much time by like, chasing those links and whatnot, but at the same time he was still maxed out. His attack looks scary, but the way that he attacked, he gave Elazer the fight he was dreaming of. Like that's what sweet Zerg dreams are made of. You're fighting on creep in the most wide open area of all time, at least for your Hydras. Then the Stalkers, they're kind of clumped up to each other, and then you drop a blinding cloud in the middle 2 or 3 times, and the army just runs forward into your meat grinder that is this huge arc or concave of Hydras.
It was beautiful for Elazer in the end there. Really, really well set up to then greet the Protoss army. So now we're getting on to game number 3. It will be Coda, and I think you had a lot of quick series yesterday. This one at the moment is shaping up to be as quick. If
not as quick as those yesterday, James. Trust me, if you see the VODs, you'll know what I mean. They were very quick.
Yeah, sadly I was a little bit busy yesterday.
Because these games indeed, it's going fast, but yesterday we saw a couple of games of Proxy into GG, Reaper Hellion into GG, so that was a little faster.
All right, well, let's get into it then. It will be game number 3 here between Elazer as well as Welmu. Thanks, buddy. I know you got me covered.
A lot of people get very mad when the red Zerg is on top of the scoreboard, but he's actually on the bottom side of the map.
Oh, well. Oh, well.
OCD, James, it's a real thing.
I guess so, I guess so. All right, spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner, we have our red Zerg representing Team Extreme Supremacy. It is Elazer, 1 game away from Premier again. And if he's able to take out Welmu here, it's quite the statement when it comes to his progression through the past 2 Challenger series. And then up to the top left-hand corner, really needs to battle back. He has been in Premier in the past for a 2.5-year span, and he made consistent top spots. But now today, as well as in Season 2, what is happening? He's got to really book up his ideas. It is Welmu.
Yeah, even at multiple top 8 finishes as well. It wasn't just that Welmu was a player that made it into WCS Premier League and then bombed down to the round of 32 with 1-2, 0-2 scores. Like, no, he had deep runs. He had solid runs. He had a lot of great victories. Not down and out yet in this series, because I still feel the games. Because I know like how a lot of the Zerg players in Europe currently feel about ZVP, right? They're not too happy with it, and they always feel that Zerg only wins if Protoss messes up. And if you look at the games, like in game number 1, could Welmu have won? Well, maybe. I kind of felt he was in an okay position until Elazer got the absolute fight he was dreaming of. But that is also a skill to have as a Zerg player, you know. You give the Protoss a false sense of security and you push them into a position they should not necessarily be in. Because, you know, StarCraft 2 is a lot about the engagement. It doesn't really matter what matchup. You know, TVT, your tanks are on siege, mine are siege, I'm going to win. PvP, you know, your Colossus are clumped up, mine are spread out, I'm going to win, you know. And ZVP is kind of like that too. You want to get those right engagements. And so far, Elazer is just twice, both games, game 1 on Cactus and game 2 on Iron Fortress. He just wins because he gets a phenomenal engagement.
Yeah, that's actually such an insightful notion that you mentioned there, which is lure them into a false sense of security. Welmu, he had a great army. He had a brilliant army.
Yeah.
And you said it even before the fight went down, that generally you look at those two armies and everyone's like, wow, Protoss' army is sick here. That is really, really good. But Elazer was having none of it.
No, because I know how those fights go for me, James. That's why.
Okay.
It's like, well, you know, whenever I do this, Blinding Cloud completely shreks me. Let's see how it goes for Welmu. And, well, Blinding Clouds turned out to be pretty useful.
Yep, it wasn't too bad at all. And for now, Elazer has all the information he needs available. He knows that it was a Nexus first. He knows that this full wall-off is being constructed. And Welmu technically has gone for an extremely greedy build.
Yeah.
And Chrono boosting the seller out is desperation times because the Zerglings are going to get it just before it, and that is annoying.
Yep, it is annoying, but not the end of the world, because at least he has this one Zealot to kind of chase these links.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. This is a super greedy build for Welmu. It's pretty much the most greedy build in the book. He did Scout, so it wasn't a Nexus first into, you know, no Scout. At least he got the Scout, but other than that, this is a very, very economic and potentially still aggressive build for Welmu as well, because despite the fact that this is such an economic build, he still has relatively quick access to the cybernetics core. He's going to get his first Stalker out. The Stalker kind of gives me the idea that he wants to make it very hard. Elazer taking out those rocks. Seems like you think it's going to be easy to wall off over here. Think twice, Welmu. So I have the feeling that this Stalker's, its duty is to push Overlords away. I think we're going to see some 3 or 4 gateway aggression this game from Welmu.
Yeah, definitely. The Lynx, having spotted the Chrono boost initially going into the gateway, means that technically wasn't into the warp gate, so it gives him a smaller little advantage in terms of the timings that would come along. But other than that, I mean, there's no reason he couldn't put those Chrono boosts into warp gate now, it being out of vision.
Still, no extractor went down for Elazer. So if Welmu decides to go for some 3 or 4 gateway aggression, I think it could have been very, very successful. Double gas is going down right now at the 6-minute mark, but there is a sentry on the way, and I would say 7 out of 8 times when they build a sentry, I don't know why I said 7 out of 8. Normally you say 9 out of 10. they won't be too aggressive. He does drop 2 gateways as part of the wall, but it could just be for the same thing as he was doing on the Iron Fortress to go up to 3 bases. Yeah. Unless he drops another gateway in the back, then we might still see some aggression. But there's no probe out on the map, so I think Elazer is going to be very happy with how this turned out so far. Because on Iron Fortress, he played very safe, right? Like, he opened up with Zergling speed and whatnot. That does hurt your economy a little bit. Right now, other than those few links that he made, this has been great. It's been nothing but drones in the production tab. There is a Stargate going down now. Where is it? Where is it going down?
Just to the right-hand side over here. So, but all he's revealed really is the Forge. So he's making it look like very, very similar to Game 2, as you're saying.
And this is kind of cool, though, because remember that hallucinated Oracle in game number 2. So right now, if Elazer spots that Oracle, he probably thinks like, it's going to be an hallucination again, you know, let's ignore.
That's a good point.
Oh, he used Guardian Shield in natural. Quick, natural.
Oh, no.
Ruddy move.
Oh. That's quite a bit of wasted energy.
You know why that happens?
It's G, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did he want to make it a gateway? What was he doing?
I think it's that moment where your gateways finish up and you want to transform them into warp gate, and then you spam, and then like there's always this one little sentry. It's like, I want to spread my wings. Whee! Whee! And like the worst thing ever is like right when that happens, 17 Zerglings show up, and that's when I destroy my keyboard, James.
That's when he's on the front of the Titanic. He tries to spread those wings, then he hits the iceberg. That's bad. Not
well,
very good.
24 lings and 11 roaches on the way, so a little bit similar to what we saw in Cactus Valley. This time, however, Welmu is indeed going up to 3 bases. He's going to need a lot of cannons, James. The Oracle could... Well, he's saving up double Oracle, so... Oracles are pretty good defensively as well. It's sometimes people think like, oh, an Oracle, you know, that's, well, I hope we can kill a lot of workers. If Welmu sees what we see, oh my god, he's going to miss the army.
Yeah, he's going to miss it,
He should pull these Oracles back, because these Oracles can take care of the Lings in no time, and then cannons and Stalkers and Sentries can take care of the Roaches. But Welmu, you are completely unaware of the fact that there are so many Zerg units running across the map, and they are about to assault your third base, and maybe your tournament live.
Oh, they're coming in from both sides.
Oh my god.
They're right on top of the Sentries, right on top of them.
Oh my god.
He doesn't have enough damage. He couldn't even throw down Nexus Cannon because the Mothership Core, the Nexus hadn't even finished. Now he throws it down to field these units out, but he's lost his entire army.
He lost all these sentries. He's going to desperately try to throw up a bunch of cannons. The Oracles have come back, and the Oracles have a lot of energy, but they also have their work cut out for them.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh my god, did he just activate him? He should have more energy than this.
Against Roaches, this is going to be very annoying. The Photon Overcharge is actually doing a lot of work. It's pretty much going to be the savior over at the third base by the looks of things. Thanks to the Oracles coming back, as you mentioned, but losing that many sentries, that's so much gas investment.
And so unnecessary above all. Let's not forget about that. And ooh, cheeky Spy going down in the back of the natural. And I think that's very smart, because now he has already completely disrupted the economy of the Protoss. Protoss with no sentries playing this style, most of the time they panic. They will remake at least a few sentries. They make a safety void ray, and all the things that are good against Mutalisk are extremely delayed. And it's even so hard to scout right now if you're Welmu. Like, yes, he has the Oracles, but he doesn't want to lose them. They don't really have energy at the moment anyway. If Welmu doesn't see the Spire, he's in a world of trouble.
Yeah, right at the back of the natural as well. It's so annoying to actually spot on out. I think he may know that there was... okay, so he didn't go that far with the Oracles, so doesn't quite know that there was the Spore there, maybe zoning that position out. So he may have just tried other locations, which he is right now. He's trying the extremities of these bases where he could dive in. So putting the Spire down in the middle base of all of these is very, very smart as well.
It's really good placement by Elazer. It's so difficult, especially because there are no hallucinated Phoenixes. The main reason why Muda transitions fell a little bit out of fashion, because I'm sure there are a lot of people at home saying like, oh man, I remember when I used to play, like, I hate these Muda switches, and I still hate them. That's why I love to personally play Phoenix a lot. But these guys, you know, they're so good with Sentries and Blink Stalkers that most of the time, even when people try to switch into Mutalisk, they will be ready for it because they have so many sentries, because they see it coming in time. This time, Welmu does not see it come in time. Blink is just started, +2 just started. I think he's in so much trouble, man. Like, I have no idea how Welmu's supposed to deal with this. Yes, he has a Stargate, but if you start producing Phoenixes now, 1 Phoenix against 60... Okay, he knows. How does he know already? He saw something, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, yes. He sees the first Mutalisk. So he starts the first Phoenix immediately, but I think the only thing you can do is drop another Stargate. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I think if you have so many gateways already, a few Phoenixes maybe just to buy some time, but it's so difficult, man, because Blink is not ready yet, James.
He could take this anti-air straight up. It's 3 Stalkers and 1 Phoenix at the moment. Very, very difficult for him to deal with. He's actually just going to go straight to the third with his entire army here and just zone the rest out. He doesn't even care. The Phoenix, the first Phoenix actually flies into it, almost dies off. He needs every single bit of anti-air he can get. Tries to go for the Mothership Core. Nexus Cannon's going to go down. Doesn't manage to kill that off. But he's going towards the Stalkers as well. And the entire army is on top of the third base. How is Welmu supposed to hold on?
The cannon is doing some serious work. The Void Rays are trying to do whatever they can, but nothing here is very good against Mutalisk other than Photon Overcharge. 1 Photon Overcharge went down in the natural as well. That is a big Stalker warp in, but is it a little too late? Welmu doing everything he possibly can to hang in. He wants to be back in Premier League, but it seems like Elazer says no. The Polish Zergs looking strong in this day and age, killing 24 workers, and GG. Wow.
Fantastic by Elazer. What a showing. What a showing to actually take Welmu 3-0. And not even in like an unconvincing manner. He actually dominated that last game.
Yep, he just kept forcing small errors on Welmu. And now again, like, it is, of course, a lot of Zergs will look at this and say, like, it's really risky to make so many Lings and Roaches, you know? Like, yeah, it worked and now it's great. But if the Protoss is ready, then, you know, you're in so much trouble. And that might be true. But, you know, Welmu made a double Oracle. He was paying attention to that, flew via the outskirts of the map, and suddenly all these lings and roaches, and he was probably looking at the Oracle, and then you look back and your sentries, and you're like, oh my god, they're surrounded by Zerglings, and then you drop the desperation force fields, then it's just like F, you know, like you just
seal them in with them, like, oh.
This is like, well, you know, I want to do something, so I'm just gonna drop a bunch of force fields and see how it goes, but you know, then it's already too late, and I think the Muda follow-up is brilliant as well, like very, very brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we have you here, Roddy, to give us the insight into that, because that's by, as you rightly pointed out, fantastic transition. Fantastic there by Elazer. Really well thought out strategies there by Elazer. Another young blood. Congratulations to him for moving on into Premier League. And I imagine he'll make probably waves this season. I think he's got a good shot.
I mean, he played so good already in the previous season in the round of 32. Came pretty damn close to advancing to the round of 16. I think it came down to one map in the end, right? Yeah. And he was in a pretty tough group as well. So it's really cool because, you know, traditionally Poland always had some good Zergs. Of course, Nurture has been the flag holder, the flag carrier for the longest time, but in the past, you know, they had Tefol, they had Paranoid, those were good guys, and now you got the newer generation of Polish Zergs with Guru and Elazer. I think it's quite cool. Yeah, and then there is still Nurcho, who will never leave us.
No, he'll be around forever. He will. All right, ladies and gents, well, that does it for our first series here today. Of course, join us after the break when we are going to have our second series. Out of the 4, it is going to be our PvP, so don't go anywhere.